Well, Rihanna was actually on a tour bus in the middle of Leeds. They were on a UK tour at the time. And you might know Wet Leg, think of them as a duo, Rihanna and Hester Chambers from the Isle of Wight. However, this new album that they have coming out called Moisturizer is very much sort of an announcement of the band now as a quintet. Because even though they've been touring for a while with guitarist Joshua Mubaraki, bassist Ellis Duran, and drummer Henry Holmes, they are now really members of Wet Leg. So that this album, which was produced again by Dan Carey, is very much about a collaborative effort with all 5 band members to sort of produce and bring these songs forth. So it's interesting. It's almost like Wet Leg Take 2 in some ways. It's also an album that, even though Catch These Fists, the first single, was very much about, like a bad incident that Rihanna went through with too much male attention in a very misogynistic way. A lot of this album is about love and falling in love and maintaining love and having a lot of sex and enjoying life. And it's really there and apparent in this sort of ferocious sensuality that is throughout this new album, Moisturizer. And they have a lot of fun on this album, and you can really hear it, and you can hear the confidence of their chops here in a way that, even though it was apparent on the self-titled debut album in 2022, you can really hear how much they've grown on this record.
And it's worth mentioning, I think, that this is a band that our listeners really love. I mean, they are often popping up tracks of theirs on our best song list. Also, members have been sharing with me at shows recently that they are one of their favorite music discoveries on WFUV. So it's great that we got this chance with them. What is the first song that we're going to hear in this session?
It is CPR, which is the official second single from the album. It's also my favorite single on the entire record. It's just lusty, fun. Rihanna has a hell of a time just playing with her vocals on this. So I just love it, and really happy that they delivered this particular track to us live on FUV Live Sessions. I'm Karen Manning with FUV Live Sessions, and that is Wet Leg from the Village Studios in Los Angeles with CPR, which is the second single released from the band's second album, Moisturizer, which is love-struck, razor-sharp, and raucous with warmth and lacerating wit. Over the past 3 years since the release of Wet Leg's eponymous debut album, the Grammy and Brit Award-winning band has spent much of its time on the road, and things are no different today. I am very grateful to catch up with Wet Leg's Rihanna Teasdale over Zoom, and I think you are in Leeds right now. Is that where you are? Yeah, you're in the middle of a UK tour.
Yeah, calling from the tour bus.
Oh, very nice tour bus. Very nice upholstery I can see back there. You, at the time that we're chatting, which is the end of May, you've just played BBC Radio 1's Big Weekend in Liverpool, which was it was really clear watching your set how comfortable you all are as a quintet now. I mean, Moisturizer is very much about almost a reintroduction of Wet Leg as a quintet in some ways, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you said it so well. Me and Hester starting the band is a very important part of our story. Once we started having to tour, we invited our 3 friends also from the Isle of Wight that we've known for since we were 16 and 17. And yeah, it was just the most natural thing that we would write the second record together. And I love how it's turned out.
And, I love the fact that your mission with this entire project of Wet Leg was so that you and Hester Chambers, who is your cohort, who co-founded the band, would have fun at what you were doing and not sort of allow the music industry to dictate and make you feel that you had to achieve something. You sort of let that go and just decided to focus on enjoying what you were doing. And that's so evident, especially with the second album.
Yeah. I mean, when we started the band, we were both pretty, settled in our careers, and it really was just as a kind of side project thing, because we both stopped doing it when we were early 20s, and so we started the band kind of more towards our late 20s. I think the incentive of what we're writing the songs for has kind of stayed the same with the first album into the second album. We were all just kind of raring to get back on the road again. So yeah, when we were writing the songs, we definitely had a festival season in mind.
Well, and CPR, which you've played live for us from LA. Thank you for that, which is the second single from Moisturizer. It's also the first song on the album, and it kind of sets everything up in a way about falling in, being in, negotiating around love. And your vocals on this track are just so supple and interesting, and you play with your voice in a great way. You co-wrote this with Ellis Duran, who is one of your bassists, correct?
Yeah. He sent over an instrumental pretty much, like the kind of like almost like the full instrumental. And I'd taken myself away to a little self-catering in Oxfordshire in the countryside, like just by myself to finish up on some lyrics and things. And he sent this, what was to become CPR, and it was written so quickly. It was just very like instantaneous. I think it's really interesting how some things, like, you're kind of like chipping away at them, but yeah, CPR just happens so quickly.
How much fun is it to write a song about being in love when you are in love or falling in love?
It's really fun once it's finished and you're performing it, and it, then you can really enjoy it. But I think when you're writing and you can still change things and it's not recorded yet, I think all of us in the band have the tendency to nitpick or kind of be like, oh, is this right? Is this not? Like, you have the opportunity to overwork it or like censor yourself. So it is really fun, but I think I prefer when it's done, and then
When
you
it's
kind
done.
of can enjoy it. You're a bit more removed from it by then.
You worked again with Dan Carey, who had worked on the first album as well, and he's from Speedy Wonderground, of course. He is also somebody who is just really good with working with bands and letting them be who they are, to breathe, to be able to not feel pressured, to really I love when he works with bands because you can always hear his touch of not overdoing it and letting you sort of just achieve whatever you want to achieve. When you and Hester and the rest of the guys sat down with Dan and talked about what you wanted, what did you tell him and what were you looking from him to give you for the second album? Because there's a lot of pressure with the second album.
Yeah, it is funny, because we worked with him for the first album, there was very minimal discussion. We just kind of like shared the demos with him, and we already had this like kind of way of working. It was more kind of a case of where should we record the album? Because the first one we recorded at his studio in Streatham, the full thing, over 2 weeks. With the second one, I live in London, and so I wanted to get out of London, and Hester and Joshua and Ellis, they live on the Isle of Wight. And so, that there became this opportunity to record at this studio in Brighton. And it seemed like a really good middle ground. I think it's really important to us to be by the sea. So it had that. And yeah, we just took our time with it a little bit more. I think we spent maybe like 4 weeks in the studio. And then we spent like another, well, no, it was 3 weeks at the studio in Brighton, I think, altogether. And then 1 week back at Dan's, at his home studio where the first one was made.
Had any of these songs been things that you were playing with on the road earlier, or were they all really fresh going in down to Brighton?
Yeah, no, completely fresh. Our manager was like, oh, do you think you should be writing some music whilst you're touring? And, we were all just so road worn. We were all just like, no, we're just going to enjoy playing the shows, and then we'll come to writing the second album when we come to it.
There was a really interesting interview with you that I read a few years back in which you said, this all happened for us so quickly. The ascent after, Chaise Longue and everything that happened with the album, and that we were playing a bit of catch up. Like, we didn't expect to be playing these massive venues that we were suddenly playing. That obviously has changed over the past 3 years because, as watching you at the big weekend evidence, you're very comfortable now with a massive crowd. But did you feel like even making this album that there was a different mindset that you all had that sort of elevated this experience for you, perhaps in a way that was different from the first album?
I think the mindset was the same as the first album, like wanting it to be fun to play live. But of course, we hadn't really played any gigs before. We hadn't toured the world before, of course. And so I think, the mindset of wanting to play shows was still there. But then we had this like wealth of experience of touring, like what it actually feels like to be playing these songs night after night. And so, yeah, I think that's definitely it's definitely something that we considered writing the second album still.
Well, and also it's really hard because you are the primary vocalist. And as a front woman, that's a whole other education too of how you're presenting yourself on stage. Who am I on stage as opposed to like Rianne, who I'm talking to right now? And finding, because you originally were a solo performer before Wet Leg. Who is the person that has emerged now on stage that you sort of have found?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I think, like whilst being on stage is at times terrifying, it's also a very safe space as well, a very safe space to explore whoever you want to be. And I think that is, such an amazing opportunity that I have that a lot of people don't get. It's very, very unique to be able to like be a performer, become who you want to be, dress how you want to dress, Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm constantly exploring and evolving, and I love it.
It makes it really exciting. There's some really tender, beautiful songs on this album, like Pokemon, which is one of my favorites. And also the last song, You and Me at Home, which, my goodness, that's just such a gorgeous way of ending the album. But there are also these just absolute bangers like Catch These Fists, which was the first single released from the album. And you're actually going to play it for us today. I mean, so much of this album is about being in love, but this particular song is not that. It's about sort of, you don't cross my boundaries. And I can't help but wonder, because you're so concise as a lyricist, was this based on an actual incident that happened to you?
I mean, yeah, it's just a reoccurring, like there's, it just happens all the time. But I think what spurred one of the verses in this song was I went to a Chapel Roan gig with my friends. She played at Brixton Academy, and like the atmosphere was just so wonderful, and it was such a safe space. Like, you could wear whatever you wanted. You could wear the smallest little outfit and no one would kind of like be like, oh, trying to like approach you as if you're like dressing for them or whatever. And so, yeah, like the gig was amazing. And then afterwards we were like, okay, let's go to a bar. Let's go to a bar nearby. And we did. And we walked into the bar, and just like the energy shift was just like, yeah, it was just so drastic. And I felt so, like oogled at. And, like me and my friends, we formed like a little circle on the dance floor. There was a DJ playing some Chapel Roan songs actually after the gig, keeping the vibe up. So we're in this circle, and yeah, just countless people, men, were approaching us and trying to talk to us. And it's like, I don't know, sometimes it's just exhausting when you really do just want to be out dancing with your friends.
You're not there to be picked up. You're just there to have it. Yeah. And having and often no said repeatedly still isn't enough to get a guy to back off. Yeah. How quickly did the song come after that?
We'd already started writing it.
And then that happened right in the middle of writing the song. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where like you don't really realize what you're writing about until you get to the end of it, and you're like, okay, this happenstance, like this circumstance went into this verse, and like this little thing that happened to me went into that verse, and you can kind of like step back and pinpoint everything, like all the ingredients, where they came from.
Well, it's an amazing song, and I'm really glad that you've chosen to gift us with this from the Village Studios in Los Angeles. I'm Kara Manning with FUV Live Sessions, talking to Rian Teasdale of Wet Leg, and this is Catch These Fists. And I wanted to ask you one more quick question before you have to go, because you are an in-demand woman. Recently, Self-Esteem's Rebecca Lucy Taylor made a speech at the Ivors saying that people still try to ridicule and frighten women in the music industry. And you came at this point with Wet Leg in your late 20s. So by the time Wet Leg blew up, Rhian, I would imagine that it has been easier to say what you would and would not tolerate. And I'm wondering how much that sort of agency guides you, and Wet Leg and guides Hester in what you do.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's not just like the music industry. I think in any industry, you're constantly like battling with this kind of like conditioning from an early age of like be nice and be sweet and be polite and always to be there like fluffing up like men's egos. It's really difficult to undo that conditioning and stand up for yourself. And it's, yeah, we're constantly working at it. You don't just wake up one day and realize that the problem is this and then overcome it. You realize the problem is this, and then you're constantly having to like chip away and undo, you know, how you've been socialized. So it's hard work.
It is hard work. Rhian, you do have a remarkable album, second album, Wet Leg with Moisturizer. We will see you here in New York very soon. And thank you, Rhian, for your time, and good luck with the rest of the tour.